We could continue with the discussion. So could you please stay on the stage, and I could invite other speakers as well here. Mika Venhola, please, and Juha Kilpiä, yes, please, everybody who are here, still who haven't left, do we need more chairs? I'm wondering, I guess we have to do this discussion in two languages. Could I maybe have an interpreter here? I think at this part we would need a person here to translate.
Oh, I need my headset. I don't understand a word of it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I was just wondering that are people okay with English?
Yeah.
Is there somebody who would like us to translate things in Finnish? No. Okay, then is it okay to go in English? Yes. So the space is open for discussion, questions from the audience. So is there anyone who would like to start? Yes, Terhi.
Hello. Well, the problem I've been struggling a lot. I'm just asking if you have good advices. How you keep up with your not burning yourself up? What's your, like Mika and Miriam, are you doing this because out of stubbornness, or do you have other resources where you get energy to do this? That it's not just, well, you get the point. Where do you get your energy at your powers? Yes.
Okay, thank you. True, it's been a long way. I think I started following internet discussion place, net websites, mainly from America. 1997 or something like that. 98, okay. And pretty soon after that, started to go around in Finland doing the lectures, and after that, sometimes visiting also other countries as a kind of, to share my opinions. And it's been quite a long journey, and I've said this many times, there has been almost zero dialogue inside the medical professional, and a very good dialogue between me and every other person. So it's a little bit tiring to see that your own profession is such stubborn and closed and not open to dialogue. So why do I keep on doing this? It's because I think it's the right cause. I have an obligation to do this, and I will continue until the end, either to the end of me or to the end of the need of this. So, my driving force is that I believe this is the right thing to do. Sometimes I'm depressed and I don't see anything happening, and I think that, oh, what's the use? But still, I'm not going to stop.
Well, my drive. My drive, yes, that's difficult to say. Sometimes people say, yeah, okay, that's quite a story you tell, but I believe you are doing well now. Like, okay, it's not important what happened to you in the past because you are doing well now, you travel all over the world. And I say, well, wait a minute, I'm doing this job and it pays about half the amount of money that I got in my previous job. and I work a lot of overtime. So yeah, it's not perfectly well with me, because otherwise I would do other things. The energy that I have, well, I think that the energy comes not from anger, but that I can see that the world is really changing now. Wherever I come, I see that governments are listening, that they want to change stuff. I always see some people who are really stubborn, as you call it, and I would call them something different, but I'm told that the Finnish are very nice and kind people, so they don't use those words.
Yes, we do actually.
No, but I really try to avoid that. Maybe you have heard that also in my presentation, that I often say doctors are not to blame, it's society who we can blame. So I'm not focusing my anger, if there's any anger, on a special group, but more on society. And I see that society is willing to listen, and that gives me a lot of energy. And that they pay me well, okay, that's also nice.
Well, of course, it's nice that when you work and then you see the change, either in legislation or society or as empowering people. But I also think it is really important that the activists and people that work take care of themselves. So I sometimes use the metaphor that when you fly and there are those broadcast about if there is an emergency situation, then about the oxygen masks, that before you help others, before you put the oxygen mask to other people's head, you should first put it to yourself. So it means that to be able to fight for the rights of people, you should try to take care also of yourself, which you sometimes forget.
You have something to add, Juha?
No, itse asiassa mä sanon suomeksi, se on helpompaa mulle. Mä ajattelen, että äsken äsken kun puhuit, niin mä ajattelin, että silloin aina kun joku asia liikuttaa tai koskettaa tai saa mut jotenkin sillä tavalla tajumaan, että nyt sattuu, kun puhutaan toisista ihmisistä, niin musta ei enää nykyisin synny vihaa, vaan mulla jää vaan suru. Ja sitten jos mulla tarttuu surun kiinni, niin sitten mä tiedän jotenkin, että se on se työ tai se paikka tai asia, missä pitää toimia, koska siellä on surua. Ja musta on kauan siitä jotenkin hävinnyt pois semmoinen, että uskoisin, että musta tuli vilpittömästi kova taistelija asioiden puolesta. Mutta sitten se on se elämä, mitä pitää elää siinä hetkessä. Jotenkin pitää tunnistaa, mitkä asiat tuntuu itsessään ja olla aika rehellinen itselleen. Ja kyllä mä uskon, että siitä syntyy niin kuin elämä. Ja siitä syntyy energia.
Thank you. Is there other questions? Yes?
Thank you to each of you. My name is Erik Mattsson. I'm working for the SOSPET Foundation. I was surprised to find out that Malta is like a good example where things are going much better than in other countries, despite what you mentioned that the president has vetoed. What have they done right in Malta? What are the milestones? What did they do there? What could we learn from Malta?
I think that was addressed to me.
Yes. Oh, any of you, but...
Well, one thing I've heard, I'm not a Malta specialist, but there is a former employee of ILGA Europe that is now working for the government in Malta. I think they are there as political advisor for the prime minister, and there are persons that have been successful in influencing the Maltese Labour Party that's now in the government. So they have targeted all these possible ILGA Europe rainbow map things that are there, and they've trying to make them realized. So if I shortly reply in Finnish, eli ilmeisesti Maltalla on ainakin yksi henkilö, joka on toiminut HLBTI-liikkeessä ja nyt toimii neuvonantajana hallitukselle. Eli he on vaan, sillä on ollut poliittista tahtoa sille, että täytyy vain toteuttaa nämä asiat, eikä miettiä sitä, että ehkä sitten joskus.
That's correct, she said. There's one more thing. At a certain moment, the political party got absolute power. And that helped too, of course. But you can't do nothing if you are not supported by the two archbishops in Malta. And Helena Dalli, I know her, she went to each of the archbishops, discussed what intersex is, and then it was supported by the archbishops. And that helps a lot, of course, in a country, conservative Catholic country as Malta.
Hello, my name is Tommi Paalanen from Sexpo Foundation. Just a comment about Malta, even if it's praised quite a lot and it is a kind of an advancement in the field, there is still a huge problem because the legislation includes parental consent, which can effectively ruin every advancement if the system doesn't change. As we have seen or heard here, the doctors can easily get parental consent when they say that this is really necessary. So in these kind of situations, the law cannot help if the parents are not educated and the doctors are not willing to follow the best procedures. Thanks.
Would you like to comment on?
No, I just agree.
Yes. Yeah. Who was first?
First on Malta. Malta is a forerunner also in LGBT rights, and in all its. I'm surprised, although I know what Silvan Angius did there. As a question, most to Miriam, how do you feel this activist coalition? Do you think it will work, this LGBTI? I know in some countries intersex movement is not part of this coalition. Do you see us, as I'm a gay man, do you see us as a good allies?
Oh, yes, I see them as good allies. I can explain why. When we started, we also had the possibility to join other groups. Let's say, for example, women. We tried to, and they said no, because we also worked for intersex men-identified people, so that were not women, and so they did not want to work together with us. We asked the disability movement, and then they said, well, we don't see that as a disability. Okay. And suddenly there was the LGBTI movement, and they said, welcome, you are very welcome here. They did a lot for us, even when in a time that there were only a few intersex people active in the LGBTI community. But there is more to it, and that is something that the other groups could not offer. Imagine that you have one access just from female to male, and that is who you love. You fall in love with a female or with a male. And then you have your gender identity. You identify as a female and express yourself as a female or as a male. And then it becomes a bit more complicated. We have an extra axis, and that's going in that direction. And that's your body. Is your body female or male? And what we have together with all those other groups is that we are talking about the definition of male and female. And that's the reason that LGBTI may sound a bit weird, but at the United Nations we use another acronym that is makes far more sense to this connection. We use SOGIESC. Sexual orientation, gender identity and expression, and sex characteristics. And that all depends on what is the definition of male and female. So for that reason we can work very good together. Does that mean that every person feels part of the LGBTI or socialist community? There is no socialist community, but imagine that there would be something like that. No, that's not true. But we also see that this, the LGBT community, for example, in the Netherlands, I know that COC Netherlands has 8,000 members. Do you know how many LGBTI people there are in the Netherlands? Almost 900,000. So that means that a lot of people who are part of that community by definition are not part of the community by paying membership fees to COC Netherlands. Or that can be because they don't want to be included in that community or whatever, but that's the way it is. And I think that the coalition of LGBT and I works perfect. Absolutely. We have a lot of results now. Results that we were never able to achieve when we were not able to work together. I hope that answers your question.
The next question was here. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Mika, a midwifery student and a volunteer as an educator. Today we've discussed the faults of our legislation and how we are lacking the social awareness about intersex. Instead of building up dystopias and looking back to our past and all the mistakes done, I would like to look into the future and create utopias of what the world should be like. Could you shortly describe the utopia that you have concerning the intersex inclusive society in terms of legislation and human rights, and in terms of national education and creating awareness, and in terms of affecting the general opinion of the people? Anyone?
You. Great. Or you, whatever.
Just a second. No, we can't answer. No microphone.
Sorry. I think I kind of lined out my utopia in my last slide, where I said that I would like to see a world when this is not longer an issue, and how to get there. I think we can get there, but don't hold your breath yet. But that is my kind of goal and utopia. That's okay.
In the new national core curriculum for basic education and for the general upper secondary education, they are quite good regarding that. The school instruction should add understanding and knowledge about the diversity of gender. And also the gender equality law has been changed, the non-discrimination law has been changed quite recently. So the challenge now is to make these changes in national legislation and core curriculum true in each municipality and each school. This is what we have to do.
Well, I think I already gave a short answer in my presentation, but I have to add something to that. Because as an activist, I travel all over the world, and I see more than just a happy Finland or a happy Netherlands. And utopia should go far further than just intersex issues. And I feel something a bit ashamed that I'm talking so much about intersex issues, while I see that utopia is far, far away from us all over the world, from all other kinds of things. But if we are talking about intersex utopia, then I would say that that should also be combined with trans utopia. The one cannot go without the other. And that's very important because we see that for the trans movement there's also a lot to achieve. And sometimes I include that in my presentation as well because, of course, you can even discuss that there is no difference between sex and gender. Read Judith Butler, for example. But I also think that many of the problems for an intersex are started with the idea that we also have a gender and that you can assign a gender or a sex. So, yeah, my utopia is far away at the moment, and it's extremely far more than just end surgery or more equality or adding it to the constitution or something like that. So it's a very complicated question that you gave me. I can't answer it really.
Mä ajattelen niin, että yksi osa utopia on se, että täällä ihmiset menettäisi työpaikkansa tässä salissa. Siis suuri osa meistä ei tarvitse enää tehdä töitä yhdenvertaisuuden tai sukupuolen moninaisuuden edittämisen tai ihmisoikeuksien parissa. Et me tultaisiin työttömiksi, voitaisiin ryhtyä vaikka kirjailijaksi tai kirjakauppiaiksi tai miksi tahansa muuksi. Se olisi yksi utopia. Sukupuolista ei tarvitsisi puhua erillisenä asiana, niin kuin ei tarvitsisi puhua vaikkapa siitä, että on erikokoisia kenkiä tai jalkoja. Et me voitaisiin siirtyä, se olisi utopia. Mutta ihan lähiutopia, mikä ei ole itse utopia, on se, että sä kerroit, että oliko 27-28 Hollannissa ihmisiä näkyvissä, niin mä ajattelen, jos meillä on täällä muutama, niin mä ajattelen, että ensimmäinen on se, että meillä on paljon enemmän ihmisiä keskustelemassa intersukupuolisia itse omasta asiastaan julkisuudessa. Ja ilman, että he ei tarvitsisi puolustaa olemassaoloa, vaan he voi puhua siitä sillä tavalla, että mitä kaikkea he tarvitsee. Sillä lailla vähän niin kuin samalla tavalla, miten vasenkätiset kertoo, että me tarvittaisiin saksia, että se toimii. Ja se normalisoitus ja se mahdollisimman vähän olisi diagnoosipohjaista keskustelua, vaan se olisi enemmän sitä keskustelua, kuinka me ihmiset eletään keskenään. Ei se ihan utopia ole.
Yes, I could maybe add to that I think it's important what Miriam said, that it's not just about hormones and surgeries. Oh, I'm going to cry again. I'm sorry. It's a social problem, and it's about income, about education, about all these things. So it's when we discuss about human rights, it's about we can't narrow the way we look. We have to broaden it up. And also, I think this is the first seminar in Finland, and we are starting from some point, and it's good to kind of widen our scope and the way we look at things and which things we need to look at. So we're kind of at the beginning of that road, talk about sports and talk about income and all these things that you mentioned. And I think that was one thing that it's related to that utopia and that I learned today being here, and that's important for me.
May I add, this just occurred to me about the utopia. Yesterday when I came to Helsinki, I started to read a book where the first 10 pages just blew out my mind. It's Nelia Utsjoen, Beyond the Natural Body. I don't know if you are familiar with that. Well, it's about how science has created the difference between men and women. And it starts to point out that for more than 2,000 years there was no difference. And only at the in English it's mid-18th century, I mean like 1750 and forward that, when actually you said that doctors are not to blame, but in a way they are. Because the doctors broke up the body. They started doing dissections and investigating into the body, which was, for thousands of years, thought to be actually quite the same. And for example, the first picture of a female skeleton is dating at I think it was 1753 or something like that. Before that, all people thought that there's not much difference. It's just slight variations, and there are no binary things. And then all things started to go wrong, because then we invented the hormones and gonads and dissected the body into smaller parts, and were obsessed of finding the difference, obsessed of having the scientific proof that there is a difference. So maybe if we could turn time back a little bit and go, and then of course there were problems in the times before, but actually the understanding that there is actually not such a difference, there was already, but we broke it. I think we can go back a little bit in this.
Yes, next question.
Yes, hello. My name is Touko Niinimäki, and I'm the coordinator of senior work for SETA LGBT rights in Finland. And I have a question for Miriam specifically. Since we've been talking a lot about children and youth today, but I myself am more of a senior kind of guy, professionally seen. I was wondering, how is the senior people, their representation in the intersex community worldwide? Are they representative in the community at all?
Yes, they are. They are, absolutely. But the older they are, the more they still suffer from the idea that you should not speak about this. This is something they heard from when they were very young. Doctors told them, okay, never say this to other people. And only people born after about, I think, 2000 are more open to it, because doctors say, yes, you can speak about it, but not with everyone, which is a huge difference already. But in general, you can say that it is very difficult for every intersex person to overcome the message that you should not speak about your body. And that means that everyone we see will be from young to old, because everyone suffers in the same way. But I can also say that in general we see that younger people are more feeling like activists. So that there's no change, no difference with what we see in our movement. I wish that more people from, let's say, 50, 60 would come out to say, hey, I'm intersex. But it's very difficult to find them. But they are there. They are there. And they come out to us, to the intersex movement, but not to other people.
More questions? Yes.
Rather a comment what Mika Venhola said about doctors starting to dissecting bodies. I don't remember the quote, but there's been this idea of body as a temple. And everyone, each body should be respected as it is, not to meddle with it. And I think that's quite a good theme for this meeting also, that everybody should be respected.
Anything to add? Any more questions from the audience? Yes.
Joo, kiitos. Mun nimi on Iina Kuula ja mä nyt puhun suomea, kun ei ole niin hyvä englanti, mutta tämmöinen tuli suhdeluku, kun 1/200 henkilöstä olisi tämmöinen intersukupuolinen, niin mä oon kuullut näiltä kirurgeilta vähän erilaisia tietoja, että olisi niin kuin Suomessa syntyisi esimerkiksi 5-10 henkilöä. Et mikä tämä määrä, että käsitinkö oikein, nimittäin tämän, minkä tämä Miriam esitti.
That's the reason why we only used medical studies to prove that the numbers that doctors often use are wrong. And we know that really far more intersex people are born. For example, take the Klinefelter syndrome. That will happen with 1 in 500 born males. So you can imagine that there would be far more intersex people then. But then we have to discuss, what do your doctors that you speak understand as being intersex? And that's the reason why I also mentioned that number of 1 in 4,500. That is really a lot smaller, of course. But that is only about ambiguous genitalia. And if you say, yeah, only ambiguous genitalia are counted as real intersex, then you come up with a number. Then when you say that Klinefelter, Turner, and a lot of other quite common diagnoses are intersex. But I can tell you, this number, what I gave you, has been checked by the Dutch government, so it must be true. But it still depends on the definition. But really, it still depends on the definition used.
We've heard a lot of numbers, but I would like you to remember one number. It's 1. What do I mean here? When we are talking about human rights, the 1 is crucial. It includes every person. This is not about how many. This is about everyone. This is about the 1. Okay, let's go back to that question. Many times we've mentioned here that intersex is a kind of umbrella term. And the numbers vary because whoever is talking about this would like to influence, for example, the doctors would like to influence the laymen or legislatures or anyone with their numbers, saying that, okay, actually, let's not keep such a fuss about it because the numbers are so small and we can take care of this, so you don't have to actually even understand this. So there's a political reason behind this, and there's a kind of also the doctors are trained in a way that we love diagnosis, and the diagnoses are a systematic categorization where actually you have to have strict boundaries. Either you are this number or then you are not. And when you are this number, then you should have only the qualities this diagnosis number has, or all this. You should check all the boxes, and then you can get this one. But what if you check also other boxes? Then it's very difficult to have a diagnosis here. So when doctors are talking about intersex, there's this political background that, okay, let's keep it small so we can keep it to ourselves. Then on the other hand, it makes things much more complicated if we include this and this and this diagnosis in it, because it starts to grow like a pullataikina. I don't know what that's in English. and then it's impossible to control anymore. So it will spread out from our hands. And of course, you have to remember that the goal of activism is trying to make a change, influence, and then the numbers are needed. We have to say that, okay, it's not just few, but it's many. And that's why this matters. That's why we matter. But please, let's go back to the number 1. That's what human rights are all about. It's not that we have to prove that, okay, there are enough. One is enough.
More questions from the audience? Everybody seem content at this point. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the speakers. Thank you for the audience. I changed to Finnish now. I'm sorry, Miriam. Kiitoksia, että olette tulleet paikalle. On ollut tärkeä päivä ja käyty paljon hyviä keskusteluja. Seminaari oli tältä erää tässä, mutta TIKA-hanke jatkuu. Anteeksi, oliko kuulma? Joo, muistan. Eli TIKA-hanke jatkuu. Jos olet kiinnostunut tulemaan mukaan, niin ota muuhun yhteyttä ja mietitään, millä tavalla voidaan tehdä yhteistyötä. On tulossa tosiaan, niin kuin alussa mainitsin, niin koulutusmateriaalia. On tulossa oppaita, opas IS lasten perheille ja nuorille. Sitten on tulossa animaatio sukupuolen moninaisuudesta, mitä voi käyttää koulutustarjoituksessa ja varhaiskasvatuksessa ja monissa paikoissa. Ja animaatio intersukupuolisuudesta. On tulossa artikkeleita aiheesta muun muassa tästä seminaarista. Ja yhteistyö- ja asiantuntijaverkoston kokoaminen jatkuu. Ja on tulossa myös kirja intersukupuolisuudesta. Satu, haluatko Kuura mainostaa sitä lisää vai riittääkö tämä? Muuhun voi ottaa yhteyttä. Se tulee tämän vuoden lopulla, eikö vaan? Tammikuussa, joo, lasten satukirja. Mutta paljon tapahtuu ja mielellään tulkaa mukaan. Kiitoksia teille tästä päivästä.